All right, here we are again.
Yep.
Guess you could figure it out. Power and Speed. Todd's here. Say hi, Todd.
Howdy.
You're so anxious to get on. You just...
908-751-0211. We are Power and Speed.
Like us on Facebook and iTunes.
And the other thing you do is you follow us on Power Speed Pod. We've been picking up a little bit of followers here and there.
Yeah, I got to learn that shit. What is that, Twitter?
Yeah, it's great.
I know. You're a killer at it.
You just abuse people and send people, because you can send a nasty gram in 140 characters or less.
I know.
So you try to craft how insulting you can be, and then you got to tag it with something current, like hashtag something current, so that other people that really don't have any interest in this end up seeing your shit, and then you get some shit back.
Like presidential candidates.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I go nuts with all of it. I don't care.
And you got, what do you got, one name?
No, I've got like 70.
I know.
I was single-handedly, I think I kept Piers Morgan busy for a month.
I know.
Just blocking every new, because it used to be Hey Piers, and it was Hey Piers 1, Hey Piers 2, and then every time he'd block me, I'd go after him again. So, all right. I'm sorry. It's my fault. I was sick.
How many demerits you get?
What do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, you were sick.
I was bad.
I sound like I'm sick now.
Well, yeah, you've had a sinus thing or something going.
Yeah, I'm a mess.
Yeah, I was in bad shape for, actually, I guess it started on Thursday and continued all the way through, realistically, until Monday morning. So, yeah, it was shitty, to say the least. That really didn't come out. Are you going to pay attention, or are you busy with your... I've got Tad whose headphones can't... Somebody keeps adjusting his headphones. I've got you staring at your mobile devices.
Hey, I got to see who's talking to me.
So,
Or about you?
So it was my fault that we didn't do the show on Monday, but I'm better. I feel good. I actually feel better than I have in a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that? Because you drink tea now?
I've drank tea. I've been drinking tea forever.
What tea in specific?
Hot tea.
Yeah, but what flavors?
No,
where did
just conventional tea. Like Tom got me the fruity basket over there. I haven't tried any of them yet. Maybe at some point I will. No, just hot tea, milk, sugar, and I'm good.
All right.
That's it.
Retard Highway.
Yep. Car stuff.
Yeah.
Tonight we have a guy that you know.
Yeah.
I haven't actually talked to him yet, but I'm very interested. Tom, you can tell everybody who's coming on in case you haven't read.
Yeah, we got Nick from, he's the owner of American Racing Headers, and it's a pretty cool story. It's a cool company. He's going to call in, and we're going to talk some headers.
And it's a relatively new company as well.
Yeah, I think it's like 10 years old. And,
I think it's less than that.
it could be.
I think it's less than that.
It could be 9 years.
No.
It could be 8 years and 15 months. Who knows?
I thought it was less than that.
Well, he'll know.
I would hope he'd know.
I think he's going to know.
And that this is going to be, for me, this is an interesting conversation. I don't know how technical he wants to get, but I know through struggles of trying to work with companies, like, we can build you the magic header. And that was exactly like the carburetor guys. We got a carburetor, and I told it on the one where Cubic was on.
Yep.
This one's going to be the one. 20. You're going to see 20 from it. Yep. Wrong way.
Yeah.
Every single time. Headers, same deal.
Yep.
Oh, was that with intake manifolds too, wasn't it?
The intake manifold stuff was sheet metal manifold guys that said that they could do as good a job as a cast manifold at that height.
Didn't work.
Never happened. No, at least back then, never happened. They
did a better job at hitting your credit card, though.
Oh, yeah.
At that time, they were like 5 or 6 times the money.
Yeah, well, and at that time, when you were doing something like that, that was cutting edge, so it was expected.
Right.
That you would have to make some revisions, but after like 7 or 8 revisions, usually the manifold guy just cries uncle and gives your money back.
Yeah.
We went down that road a couple times, but knowing that he was coming on, I started looking back through some of the old things that I remember and things. One of the people that I had a lot of conversation with over the years was Jerry Stahl. Very interesting guy. Did you ever talk to him?
I did.
Very interesting guy.
Yep.
And you could talk to him for hours about any particular subject. He would talk and talk and talk. Very big into dynos, very big into dyno testing. And
he knew a lot of stuff.
Yes, he did.
About a lot of stuff.
Yeah. He and I shouldn't say he did. He does. He was kind
of the opposite of Alan. Sorry.
Why you got a tool on a poor guy? He's not even here to defend
Because
himself.
Tad just told me that that Crunch posted a picture of Chevrolet firing order and he didn't know what it was.
He
Are you serious?
He responded to me with a question mark. I was like, oh boy.
Now you're ganging up on a poor guy.
How am I ganging up on him? He didn't know the small block Chevy firing order.
Come on, man. That's crazy.
I came out of a coma. I asked the doctor that exact question. He looked at me like, what?
Did you really? You remembered when you woke up?
Oh, yeah.
So that
was ingrained.
We couldn't have traded that for a more useful piece of information.
That was all of it.
Wait, what's more useful than that?
Oh, quite a bit, Tad.
Yeah, there's
like
a little bit.
directions for putting headphones on.
Yeah, whatever.
God, I wish we had that. Tad spent 5 minutes
I
trying
know.
to put his headphones
That would
on.
have been great video.
But I spent a lot of time talking to him about dynos, about testing, and particularly how to test headers on a dyno. And I mean, he's a header guy, so you would listen to him.
Yeah.
Dyno room construction plans. I'm sorry, I'm still a little froggy from throat being irritated. One of the things that I took away from him, and I actually looked to see if I could find it today, there was basically he had detailed a description of dyno exhaust, how it should work. And I can't tell you how many places I've been to that they have a header with a 4-inch collector.
Yep.
And they put a piece of 4-inch hose over it and duct it into the exhaust system. Well, that's like a big giant collector then.
Yeah.
So you're really not testing the header.
Right.
And I think we might even talked about this in a previous episode. I believe Jerry's rule of thumb was 4 times the collector diameter should be the tube that the header dumps into to direct your exhaust
That makes
to your
sense.
exhaust system.
So 3 goes into a 12.
Yeah.
And it can be in the back of the header could be past the front of the pipe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it shouldn't really have much of an effect. And in fairness, back then, very few things had 4-inch headers, so I think we always used like 12-inch tubes. And what you'd want them to do is you'd want the header to sit in the middle of the tube.
Sure.
And then it could draw air from around it. And it was a better deal.
Sure.
But I think people were trying to make dynos quiet. They were trying to make them more efficient. So, I mean, I've seen all these contraptions where they basically extended the collector of the header 12 feet, 10 feet, whatever it takes to get into the exhaust system.
Yep.
You cannot tune headers that way. You
No.
can't check headers on a dyno that way.
No.
So, I mean, that's like, these are some of the things that I remembered, like when we started talking about the guest for tonight. I'm like, man, I thought about all that conversation I had.
I
with Mr.
remember
Stahl.
I remember something about you used to put a long collector on the header, into those tubes that should be, 4 times the header size, the collector size. And you would paint it with regular paint.
Yes.
And where it stopped burning off is where you cut them off. And that was the optimum length for
For the collector.
the collector.
Yes.
So simple.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that really worked.
Yes. Yes.
Crazy.
Now, what I couldn't tell you, and these are all questions I had, and I remember asking some of these questions, and people were like, shut up. So everybody would say, well, you bolt the collector extension on your car. Generally, it helps bottom with more collector.
Sure.
So you bolt the collector extension on your car, you paint it, you make it past the track, you look, you see where they are, cut them off. There's your new point. What if you painted them again? Does that point move? Or is that point ideally the same place? And I remember asking somebody that, and he said, they looked at me like I was retarded. And I was like, yeah, but are we sure that is the point? I mean, just because that's where the hotspot is, that is the point that it wants to remain? Is that hotspot created because there's that much behind it?
I would have said shut up too.
Well, valid question.
No, it's not.
It's not, huh?
No. I don't know why.
It is a valid question because
How so? Wait, so the plan is we should be waiting for him.
well, we could talk to him. I
I hope he tells you to shut up.
yeah, like Howard did.
Yeah.
That's a trans you need. Shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I got to get with him too. When I looked at why I thought that would be different, you have the exhaust exiting out of the collector.
Yep.
So that distance from your hot spot out to the back
Yep.
is being pushed out. So now if you cut that collector short and alleviated what essentially the exhaust is pushing out past your hot point, does the hot point now move? Did it make the hot point that it should have been further forward, further back? You've altered what you're using to measure.
Got it.
I want to know. I have a lot of questions like this. quite a few.
That's a good question, I guess, now that you put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they
Same
were
way you put it before. I just wasn't listening.
probably not because you're busy fucking with your phone.
I'm texting Howard.
What do you got, Todd? Anything interesting in cars?
Well, I was just thinking to myself, now that big exhaust is the main thing, you put a 3-inch exhaust all the way back from your collector. It's just, like you said, would it change the hotspot?
It's one big collector.
Right.
That's what it is. It's one big collector. And when I would have to think that header design probably also has to take into account whether it's going to be running open or closed. If you were going to run something into an exhaust system, some of the hope that you'd like to get, I think, from scavenging and everything else, when you have an exhaust system that generates even a little bit of back pressure, I would have to think some of the scavenging is gone. Wouldn't it be?
Actually, I wonder, because now Englishtown's got the muffled days, unmuffled days. And like, somebody's going to run their race car with a full exhaust now. It's like, what would be their best way to go about it,
All right, so Hooker used to sell those things, and I think they were 12 or 16 inches.
Yes, bolt-on collector extensions.
So why wouldn't someone of some kind of intelligence paint it, make a pass, see the mark where it stopped, and go 4 inches forward, cut it there, then paint it again, see if it changes?
Well, yeah, but I asked exactly that question to somebody that was, it wasn't, at that time, it was an NHRA stock guy.
Jerry Stoll?
No.
Why didn't you ask him?
Jerry was tough to talk to. He's a little intimidating. Because he was very quick to make you feel pretty stupid. He was really, and he was not afraid to tell you that he thought you were stupid either.
So he's kind of like you.
Probably. But he was older,
He wasn't that smart.
Sure he was. He was I think, and stop saying was. He's still here.
He isn't that smart.
Yeah. He's, I had a lot of respect for the guy.
I'm smarter than him.
I haven't talked to him in a long time, but I did have a lot of respect for him. Well, I don't know. These are all questions we can ask him.
We could.
And I know part of what he's going to say. I'm not.
I hope he says shut up about
He
the
might.
collector thing.
He might.
No, I'm interested in the business story, because apparently it's a pretty cool story.
And how long do you think he was in business for?
I think 10. I know you're saying shorter.
I think it was shorter.
Yeah, let's place a little bet. Like something cheap, like a dollar.
Okay.
I'll bet you $1.
Okay.
Like a Route 44 Diet Coke?
You want to get in?
Who do you think's right, me or him? The over-under is 10 years. I'm saying under.
I'm going with Mike.
All right.
Well, Tom's been around for a while. Mike.
Okay.
All right, Tom.
Nick?
Hang on. I'm going to bring him on right now. There we go. We got him.
Hey.
How you guys doing?
Hey, man. How are you? It's Mike, Tad, and
right.
you certainly know Tom.
Yep. We had a couple of nice discussions already. How you guys doing?
Good. I have the most important order of business. How long have you been in business?
September 16th, 2015 was 10 years.
Fuck.
He told me today, dude.
That's
Why
right.
why would you bet me, you idiot?
Because I thought I heard something different on
What
something
is
I
wrong
listened
with
to.
you?
Okay. You know what? You're both right. Because manufacturing actually didn't start until January of 06, which would make it 10 years this month. So there you go.
Yeah, he was thinking like 8 or 9 years, so he lost anyway. But,
Yeah.
it's just unfair because you told me when I was driving here.
Really that hard up for $1, I'll give it to you.
You're lucky I said $1. I could have said $2.
Ooh.
Buy a bottle of soda for $1.
I know. Well, we're glad to have you, man. We want you to tell us about your stuff. Tell us about your company. Where do you want to start?
Well, I mean, we can pretty much hit it from how it all began.
10 years ago. More than 10 years ago. Damn it.
Yeah. A lot of people often wonder, how did this whole thing come together, and how did we get to this point so quickly? If you know anything, any kind of history about American racing headers, I mean, we've been able to accomplish quite a bit in a pretty short time. I think part of it has to do with the fact that, we kind of took a whole different approach to header design. As manufacturers, obviously you have, guys, that have been in business that have done amazing things, like Jerry Stahl, for instance, as a good example, and there's quite a few others. But for the most part, we were more focused on the manufacturing side, but we also wanted to take the approach where, we just wanted to build stuff that just didn't have those same inherent problems that header designs had for, forever. I mean, we're all old enough to know what a crappy set of headers looks like, and the fact that, you probably needed a sledgehammer to put them in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the ball peen hammer and torch, the adjustment tool for the blackjack headers.
Blackjacks, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of junk, and there's still a lot of junk out there, thankfully. So we really don't have much in competition on the high end side.
Well, there's one thing to talk about here. I think a lot of the junk now is coming from overseas, correct? That it's not.
Our industry is infiltrated. The exhaust industry it's just ludicrous what's going on. Companies that you would consider to be high end companies, I mean, their stuff is just infiltrated, and that's one of the other things that we focused on from the very beginning, that that we were not going to outsource at all. We went even as far as finding an outfit that was able to give us a certification. We actually got 4 certifications as being a 100% made in USA company, and again, that was critical to us. Not yes, because I'm a patriotic guy, you know what I mean, and I love this country and what it stands for, but also from a quality standpoint. There's just no comparison. There's just no comparing it. We've all seen the junk. I remember when buying parts, stuff that was coming from, I don't even want to mention these companies, but stuff you get at a speed shop, and it was just junk right out of the box. You go put it on your hot rod back in the day, and that stuff again still exists, but there's still plenty of decent stuff out there to counteract that. In our industry, you can buy a set of mufflers that look just like mine for $15. You know what I mean? And that same muffler, that same looking muffler that we buy is $80. We don't make mufflers, we buy them. But this is what we're competing against, unfortunately. But what I think's happened though is that I think the public's really starting to realize that, at least our dealer network is starting to see the differences little by little. It's a battle that's kind of working to our favor. Because people have realized that when you buy American racing headers, you're not buying junk. And then of course, I'm psychotic when it comes to making sure that our customers are happy, and making sure that when we get the product in their hands, that they're totally satisfied. So there's a lot of things that are going on our end to try and, separate ourselves from what others are doing.
And so obviously, and I'll just go into a little bit of information that I didn't know personally. You actually have manufactured the headers for the factory drag cars. I mean, if your products are selected to be used and basically spec'd by a manufacturer, that's got to be a feeling of accomplishment. Has to be.
The story of how that whole thing came down is a really great story, and a lot of people have often asked me, how in the world did you end up sealing the deal with all 3 manufacturers? Well, it was kind of a snowball effect that started with Ford. When Ford decided to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Cobra Jet back in 2008, they decided to build 50 cars based on a small little ad that I had put into a Fun Ford magazine. I don't know if you remember. I don't even know if Fun Ford's around anymore.
I remember it.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I think Evan Smith worked for him.
What's that?
I think Evan Smith was one of the guys I knew from Fun Ford.
Yeah, that's very possible. And I put a small ad in there, and one of the engineers, a gentleman by the name of Jim Ronzello, saw that ad in that publication, and it just so happened that at that time the GT500 had just come out. So Jimmy, who's been drag racing stock and super stock for years, decided that he was going to take one of these GT500s and turn it into a drag car. And in the process of all that happening, he called me up and he said, "Hey, this is what I'm looking to do." Now, we had just finished making headers for the GT500s, for their, production stuff, for the street cars. So he called me up out of clear blue and said, "Hey, man, this is what I'm doing. Are you interested in helping me out with a set of headers?" And before he can even finish the sentence, I was asking him for his address. So I ended up putting a set of headers in the box and shipping it to him. And and then not even thinking about it. About 2 months, 3 months went by, and then all of a sudden I get a phone call that Ford was contemplating building these cars, and they were looking to test our headers. Now it just so happened that Jimmy had the inside track on that, and he took the headers that I gave him to Ford, and Ford put them on the dyno. So there was a lot of stuff going on with that whole program. I knew nothing about it. Next thing you know, we're getting the contract for it. Now, of course, Ford had tested other things. They didn't just test our headers, and we were able to seal that deal, based on dyno results and I guess the quality of the product. And this is only our third year in business. So this is '08. We're talking about 2008, and for us to be, in our infancy and to be able to get that deal was just huge. I mean, it was just huge.
Yeah, if memory serves me correct, Ford was always an easier manufacturer to work with. Like they were more accessible, they were more friendly.
They were more into the whole racing thing.
Yes, absolutely. Because like Jimmy LaRocca, one of the Mustang guys, like back in the Nitrous Pete days and all those days,
right?
He was a regular guy, right? I mean, no superstar. Same with Nitrous Pete. I mean, I don't even want to get into that.
Yeah.
Just kind of regular people, and they could get help from Ford that I couldn't even begin to imagine trying to get from GM.
Right.
Never in a million years, at least back then.
You know what it is? It's the red tape. You know what I mean? If there's just if people just kind of give up. If there's a lot of red tape and nonsense that you got to go through in order to get to that point, people are just going to go path of least resistance. And in Ford's case, I guess they were at that time easier. I find, I'll be very honest with you, I have such a great relationship with all three. I find all three to be, fairly accessible. I mean, this year, I don't know if you guys heard, but Dodge is building 60 cars, 60 drag packs, 35 of which will be supercharged, and 25 will be naturally aspirated. We shipped 60 sets of headers this year. So Dodge is going that direction. I mean, it all started on the Dodge side. See, Dodge was second. Dodge started with the drag pack in '09 when they decided that they were going to build a V10 version of the Challenger.
Right.
Because I guess the Hemi development hadn't gotten to the point where they can be competitive with what Ford was doing. So they decided let's take a V10 Viper engine up the power to 800 horsepower and go out and race these Cobra jets. And they did that. And they did that very successfully. So they built a bunch of cars, and then we got that contract. And there was some other stuff that we did with Dodge. They did an ACRX road race car, which was they created a road race series called the Viper Cup, and we were able to bag that contract as well. That was so cool because I actually got to spend 3 days at the Conner Avenue plant in Detroit, and I got to watch the first 25 cars roll off the assembly line with our headers on them. I mean, it was like, I don't know, it was like dying going to heaven.
That's pretty cool.
That is cool. That's like you're sitting there watching an assembly line with your parts coming off. That's got to be what a sense of pride.
What's funny is that part of the deal of getting that was actually committing to being on the assembly line for those 3 days, as if that was going to be a problem. So
yeah.
I mean. Yeah, we went there, and it was just wonderful to be there and experiencing that whole thing where, all these Vipers, years and years and years worth of model years that were built on that same assembly line. So it's kind of like hollowed ground to Viper guys. And I was there for that. And of course, getting that out of the way opened the door to Chevrolet. Chevrolet, what happened with Chevrolet, the whole thing with GM, all three of these cars, the Cobra Jet, the drag pack, and the Copo, all three cars were built in the same shop. The proof of concept car was all built at a shop called MPR Race Cars. Mike Postelny up in Michigan. He was the one that built the first of each car, the proof of concept. So I had developed a relationship with Mike as well.
Isn't he a racer?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He races stock.
Races stock.
Eliminator.
Yep.
He's got he's got multiple cars. He's got Cobra. Yeah. I don't know if he still has a Cobra Jet, but I think he's had them all. And I know that last year, I think at Indy he was racing a Copo. But Mike was a big. Having Mike on our team was also a big advantage because the GM guys could have, they could have gone multiple ways, but given what we had done with the other companies And the fact that our stuff tested so well, and then Mike adding the icing on the cake, we were able to seal the deal. Now, I mean, we've done, I don't know, 3 runs already for the Copo, 3 production runs. It's just been awesome.
That's pretty amazing to start and then end up in this position in what is essentially still a short period of time.
Yeah.
What he said.
What's really cool is going to the U.S. Nationals, going to the U.S. Nationals and watching these cars go down a racetrack and knowing that almost every single one of them has your headers on it. I mean, it's like the coolest thing,
Yeah.
That's pretty surreal.
That is cool. Hey, by the way, speaking of headers on a car, your buddy Howard from Redline just texted me. He's at the racetrack. He just went 791 at 180.
Oof.
Yeah. Howard is, he doesn't stop.
No.
He is one of the hardest working guys I know in this industry. And talk about, he's another psycho perfection. He's, everything he touches, it has to be perfect. And I really admire him for that. He's also been a great customer of ours. And, I appreciate all the stuff we've done. So, he was kind of the guy that, turned me on to you guys as well.
Yeah. Well, he's the guy. I decided my C5 Corvette needs a whole complete mechanical makeover.
Okay.
It's been sitting for a long time. I don't use that one anymore. And, I was talking about building maybe an older Malibu. I had looked at a bunch of different stuff. Tom and I kicked around kit cars, and
Yep.
I said, I got that platform in a garage. And then we talked to Howard. So, we're going to get started on that in the near future for sure. Yeah, he's an interesting cat.
Drag type car or
Very fast street car.
fast street car?
Yep.
Just a fast street car. Gotcha.
Yep.
All right.
8 seconds street
The
car.
road course with it too, or just drag racing?
Road use primarily. I don't even necessarily feel the burning desire to go to any type of track, but I want it to stop as good as it does. I want it to handle as good as it does. I just want it much faster, much faster.
It's a terrific platform to start with. I mean, I don't have to tell you, the car is just a fun car. The C5s and all these cars, all of these last 3 generations have just been incredible. I mean, for us, they were the C5 and C6 is how American racing headers started. The first things that we went to market with were C5 and C6 headers. And I have to be honest with you, that was probably the single smartest thing. The most fortunate thing that could have happened to us is that we went that route first, because I think if we had gone any other way, nothing against Ford guys and Chrysler guys, but had we gone any other way, I don't think we would have had the rapid growth that we had. The Corvette world is a world with money. And and these guys modify these cars brand new. I mean, they buy them right off the showroom floor, and they drop them off at shops like Howard's and say, here, have at it.
Yep, they have money. They want quality. They're very into their cars. They're fanatical.
Right.
They wear Corvette socks.
Yep. Shoelaces.
And that was huge for us. Tapping into that market first, and that going to work on that stuff, and it allowed the company to grow rapidly. Actually generate enough revenue to buy more equipment and do some other things, it was just I guess lucky stroke that that's what we tapped into first was Corvettes. So we're blessed in that. So you have a great car, and it sounds like you don't need a set of headers soon.
I don't know. I was gonna ask you about that because this is gonna be turbocharged. So do you?
Oh,
yeah. This is gonna be.
He's talking. Yeah, we're talking 8-second street car.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. Why not stick a Pro Charger on it? Call it a day.
Nah.
I'm not a mechanical supercharger guy.
Okay.
For me, I'm not hating. Everybody to each their own.
We're turbo guys.
I personally, for what I think I need to do and to be manageable, I think I agree with Howard. I think turbocharging is the best way for me to go. For a fun street car, I think a supercharger is fantastic. I think that's a great way to go. But for particularly what I'm looking to do here, I think turbos are my best bet.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that works. I mean, if you're going to mount them up front, you'd have to get the car to the shop, and we'd have to go ahead and custom build you a set of headers. I don't think anyone makes, or either that, or you can even, I guess a lot of guys use the factory manifolds as a starting point, and they'll build from there. But if they're going to be forward facing, we could do a set of forward facing headers for you.
I don't. Yeah, I appreciate that, and probably that'll be left up to Howard to decide where he wants to put the things, because he's going to be the guy doing this for sure. I mean, I can handle the motor side of it, but the rest of the fabrication stuff, I'd be working on it till I'm 100. That's
Gotcha.
So how did you get into the header thing? What started all this?
All right. So back in my youth, when I first went into business, I had a shop in Brooklyn called Supreme Automotive, and I started out basically doing general auto repair, and of course I had a love for racing from the very, very beginning. So there was always some kind of car in the shop, some kind of hot rod restoration, something that we were doing. For the most part, it was classic muscle cars that we were building to go faster. And everything we did, I always had to farm out the exhaust work. Well, finally, that got old. And in 1995, I decided, you know what, I got to start doing our own exhaust system. I always had, I'm a junkie for information, so if I'm working on something and we're making changes and everything else, and we're trying to find more power, I try and document as much of that information as possible. So what happened was, we started buying. I bought a press bender at first, and then we just started buying more and more equipment to do our own exhaust. And then this light bulb went off in my head. I was watching a NASCAR race in the early '90s, and Alan Kulwicki, the late Alan Kulwicki, was on fire, upside down and on fire. Some crash that he had, and the cameras had zoomed in. And when I looked at the underside of that car, I saw something that looked like an X pipe, and I said, and I said, what in the world was that? And that was, I think, 1992.
I remember exactly the frame that he's talking about. I remember watching that.
Yep.
I remember because that was like the first time you got a good look, because they didn't have cars flipping, upside down back then, so you could look at everything. So it was the first time you got a look at the bottom side of a cup car with a full exhaust.
Helicopter. It was a helicopter shot.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And they kind of zoomed in, and then and I saw this what looked like an X pipe, and it's kind of, I just never forgot about it. I often wondered what it was. I had made some inquiries, and I kind of found out what it was, but I never adopted it. The exhaust shop that we were dealing with, through those years, had no clue what the hell I was talking about. So I said, you know what, the hell with it. But when I started doing my own exhaust, I started making X pipes. So what I did was I started calling all my customers, all these cars that I had built, and we'd done, engine work for. And I started bringing people back in, and I started taking their true dual cars, and I started incorporating X pipes into it. And then what we were finding was that in a lot of those cases, the X pipe made a nice difference. We'd see a better throttle response. We were seeing better ETs, better mile an hour. Of course, we're talking about the cars that had headers for the most part. I mean, the stuff that had manifolds on it probably didn't make much of a difference. But if it had headers, we were seeing some positive results with the X pipe. And then that just kind of stuck with me. Next thing you know, I started making X pipes and shipping them all over the country. I started making kits, 2.5, 3 inch, 3.5, and then what I took it a step further, because I was such an information junkie. I would make X pipes and I would put them in boxes, and I would take them. I would go to divisional races. I'd go to Englishtown and kind of walk around the pit area to try and find folks that had a vehicle that could potentially test this. You know what I mean? Here's a 3.5 inch X pipe. I don't want any money for it. I just want you to put it on a car and just let me know what the results are. So, of course, most of those guys were stock and super stock races, racing the same combination for, a millennia. And they'd look at me like I had 3 heads, like, why am I going to put this shit on my car? This is junk, So I'm like, listen, you have to try it. And the few guys that I got to try taught me a bunch of things. What we learned ultimately was that if your headers weren't up to snuff, if there was something not right about the header, whether it be because the header just was designed poorly, it just wasn't the right primary length, right primary tube size, and whatever, the collector's design was inefficient, the X pipe would help. The other factor was sometimes the chassis was just shit. It was just a crap chassis, and it wouldn't allow you to build the proper header. Like, for instance, old 69, 70 Mustangs with 429s in them, You know what I mean? Where you're not allowed to touch the shock towers. The headers the headers on those cars are pretty much a disaster. So we started, we put X pipes on, and all of a sudden, the car would pick up 300s.
Mm-hmm.
You'd see something, and it became a revelation. And so learning from that, I started just kind of building this business while I was running Supreme Automotive. I was running this business, and then of course it just kind of grew from there. And then of course the whole header thing. I mean, everything kind of fell into place because as I was learning about X pipes, I was also learning about header design. What merge collectors do and primary lengths and how, and of course all the factors, engine size, RPM, vehicle weight, and all those things. And as I was learning all that stuff, I took it all and I applied it to American Racing Headers in '05, and here we are.
Nice.
Did you learn that primarily from testing, or did you learn it from, asking around, or a combination of both?
Really, it's a combination of both. See, if I did something with the customer, if like right now, for instance, today actually, I sent out a set of headers for a stock eliminator Fox body Mustang. Okay, and I didn't send out one set of collectors. I sent out two. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now I pretty much know which one of the two is going to work better, but you know what? I had a golden opportunity to send an extra set. Didn't cost the guy anything. I just sent it to him because I said, you know what? I just want to see what happens. Let's just try this out. So, like I said, I'm an information junkie. Sometimes it's an expensive way to think because you're kind of doing things for the sake of information, but that information is so valuable. I don't have a degree, a PhD in thermodynamics. I don't have any of that. My experience is based on, just testing and trying and documenting. And I don't know why, but I've been really good at it.
Well, I can't tell you how many times that we have had somebody that had a degree in thermodynamics or, whatever exhaust college they went to tell us that
Right.
Here's a set of headers. They're going to pick you up a bunch. And in the end, it was a net loser. I mean, and it would be collector pieces back and forth, extensions, change primary tubes. I mean, I'm not going to reveal any names, but I mean, there were companies that said they had programs that could, if obviously well about stock and super stock, they're very strange engine parameters because you're making them do things that they weren't ever really designed to do. I mean, you tell somebody that, a 454 rectangular port low compression motor is going to go through the lights at 9,000 and they look at you like you're crazy, and you must be incorrect. And
right.
You try to give them those parameters to get headers done, and it hardly ever worked. I mean, everything, Davis, Stahl, I can go down the list of some of the headers in the dyno room that were always the best, always. Right. And every time we'd try them. I mean, there was one guy that was a cup guy who designed an entire exhaust system for an NHRA Superstock guy, like big giant X pipe, all kinds of stuff, choke points. I mean, must have been crazy mathematics in it. In the end, the way the headers were the best was taking all that stuff off and using a collector extension. That's
right.
how it goes.
Right. Right. And and here's the funny thing. If you're putting a collector extension on the end of a header and it's improving power, it's usually because it's fixing another deficiency.
Yep.
See, I was telling Tom this the other day. I said, is there an exact science to every single application? Of course there is. But hardly anybody, will spend that much time trying to find it. It's cost prohibitive in many, it's hard to do. Who's going to stay on a dyno for a week trying to figure out what's the best thing? So, a lot of guys, what I get a kick out of is a lot of guys will call me up and say, Nick, I have this engine, it makes this much power, it's going in this car, and this is the header that, the customer, my engine builder is telling me to run this size header, and I have to tell you, more times than not, they're off by a country mile. So, it's off by a country mile. We say, well, it made the power on a dyno. And I'm like, wonderful. It would have made more power if it had the right header, bolted to it. Just because it made X amount of power, and maybe it even accomplished the power level that you were looking for. But it doesn't mean that they had the right header on it. Now, the other factor is, and this is the part that really sucks, is that sometimes the chassis won't even let you build that header. You know, not every car is a dragster. So you know, a lot of times these program, like you mentioned before, these guys that go on the program, you know, Pipe Max, for instance, they'll go on there and they'll put all these parameters in and they'll spit out this number. And then what you find out is that it just isn't feasible. There's no way. It'll tell you to put the collector. It wants the primary length to be 21 inches long, and you can't physically put the collector there.
Yeah.
You know, the chassis won't even allow it. So now the collector the only place you can put the collector is kind of underneath the car, so, you know, parallel to the ground. And next thing you know, now the primary length is 29 inches or 28 inches. So what I find with a lot of those programs is that, you know, they're great when you have a vehicle that allows you to do those things, but when you don't, you kind of shit out of luck, you know. So I find ways to compensate for those deficiencies, though. You know, I can find ways to kind of trick and cheat, you know what I mean, a little bit, to try and get some of that power back, you know, by playing with primary sizes and lengths.
And I guess some of the kind of the known parameters of doing this for as long as you have been, you know, gross power output, you know, engine displacement and RPM gives you a good starting point. Like, it's not like you're starting off with a big block saying, okay, we've got anywhere between 1.5 inch header and a 3-inch header. What primary tube are we going to use? You know, you have some parameters to start with that, you know, you've gathered over the years. I mean, that everybody has. It's done this.
Right.
There is, you know, you kind of sort of know a basic starting point for most applications. You know, if a guy comes into my shop, you know, with an 820 cubic inch big block, you know, Pro Mod type car with 4 stages or 5 stages, you know, you're not going to put a 2-inch primary on it. You know what I mean? You're going to start out with something bigger. But what I find, and a lot of people find this interesting, is that more times than not, you know, when cars come in, guys that are looking to make more power, when they show up at my shop, I always find that the headers that they have are usually too big. Okay? That's one of the things that I can't tell you how many times we've outperformed the headers that were the header that some guy spent $4,000 for, and the header was just too big. You know, and we downsize it and we find horsepower that way. I mean, that's happened so many times. I can't tell you how many times we've slaughtered tri-wise. You know, these guys will go out and spend a bunch of money on tri-wise because they're looking for that. You know, they're looking for that big torque number at a certain. And I'll build a 4-into-1 header and destroy it. You know, so you know, that's happened too. And I'm not begrudging tri-wise. I think they're great headers when you have the time and money to sit there and really fine tune it to really get it where it needs to be. It's just that a lot of people don't have that kind of time and money to do it.
Kind of what we found with the tri-wise with the circle track stuff is we could get them to work over a broader range. They would not necessarily be the best power producer, might even be down a little bit, but like to try to broaden something, they seem to be good at that. Exactly like you said, when you got them right. If you had them wrong, they were disaster. Right. Disaster.
Oh, yeah. I can't. I mean, not too long ago, a buddy of mine works for General Motors. They were working on this. He was working on this one project. It was down 20 horsepower, and I mean, it was so bad that they thought that they were blaming the cylinder head guy. You know, and this was going on for a while. And he says, Nick, you know, what are your thoughts on this? I said, I'm going to make you a header. I'm just going to send you a header, and you're going to try it out. And it turned out it was a vehicle that runs the Baja series, I guess the 1000. And guess what? He found that 20 horsepower. You know, and it had a real elaborate set of tri-wise, and it wasn't the cylinder head at all. It turned out to be the header. So you know, is there an exact science to this stuff? Absolutely, there is. But it's you know, there's going to be compromises because of chassis. You know, you're going to have to make some compromises. The trick is, in my industry, is how do you limit the compromises? How do you build something that can perform, you know, to the expectations of your customer and provide the least amount of compromises? And you know, for the most part, we make that happen.
Yeah, working around the parameters of the car has got to be one of the toughest things from a header designing standpoint, because it's those things that you'd like, man, I know exactly what this needs and I can't do it. You're just stuck.
Right.
And a lot of people, not everybody listening necessarily, a lot of people do, but a lot of people don't. NHRA stock and super stock, very finite rules as far as what you can do. So when we're talking about things fitting in a car, you can't just say, okay, look, we're going to take the whole front end off and put a tube chassis under the front. You can't do that. A lot of the factory framing must remain intact. Suspension locations, everything. That's what makes those classes. And they are extremely competitive. Extremely.
Absolutely they are. Absolutely they are. Listen, I would say that maybe 25% of the guys that run those classes actually have a header that's rock solid for that, for that combination. I think every single one of them, if they really spent the time, would probably find more. You just got to try things, and you got to be willing to take the time and spend the money to make it happen. So I've been fortunate. See, I mentioned stock and super stock because not, of course we have the thing going on with GM, Ford, and Chrysler on those vehicles, but because we've had quite a few come through the shop over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're mainly manufacturers. We make our money. We don't make money making headers for stock and super stockers. I can tell you that right now. We make our money manufacturing for the masses and putting out a great product. But I like the fact that I am involved with those guys, and that we're we've really, we've made our mark.
And I think the best thing about working with guys like that, for the most part, don't get me wrong, there are super stock racers who are just bracket guys, but a lot of people really want to run well in class and they want to set records. So when you've got guys, and these are the things that make, other performance guys like me nuts. When you hear a guy say, well, my car went this fast. Well, how fast should it go? Well, I don't know. The calculator says it should go this, and a friend of mine did this. That's not a world that I have a hard time living in that world, because I know that thing should go this fast, probably within 500ths. This is how fast, if it was good, and everything else is a compromise back. So when you work with a super stock guy or a stock guy that's a good guy, they can give you absolute positive, definitive feedback that yes, this helped, and yes, this is the right direction. And that's a great learning tool.
I cannot, it's true. Working with folks like that, quite honestly, it's very rewarding, because you're dealing with somebody that's going to take the time, and really thoroughly test your product. You're not just giving it you're not just giving it to somebody who's just going to throw it on there and not, sometimes you don't hit, sometimes there's other factors that can affect the header, so, there's other things that could potentially make the header not look like it's supposed to, because, weather or whatever the case might be. But these guys know better, So yeah, it's a blessing dealing with guys like that and getting good feedback. And that, of course, like being a feedback junkie, and learning, taking all this information. And then, what's cool about all that is that I'm able to take that information and apply it to my, to my manufacturing side also, to some degree, because some guy, I sell a lot of headers for the modern Camaros. The Gen 5 Camaro was the number one selling header for a while. And of course, GM just came out the Gen 6, which is going to be just off the charts busy. But you'll get guys like that who are building, who are also building, some kind of race car and everything else. So you can take all those theories, and all that stuff applies.
Mm-hmm.
You can apply all that stuff and build a really good combination for the guy.
Yeah, because doing stuff for an NHRA stock or super stock guys, that's you can't. There's no faking that. If you've learned something and you've got something, that means you've learned it and it works and it's applicable to a lot of other things. I mean, that's a great foundation.
You will be humbled in an instant. You don't go out pumping your chest with those guys. If you give them something that's crap, you'll know about it. Believe me when I tell you.
Oh yeah.
But I've been on the plus side in that area. Quite honestly, I've been very fortunate to be able to supply stuff that these guys were, for the most part, were very, very pleased with. So that was great for us. At one point, we even made headers for Larry Morgan and his pro stock stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know that, but Larry Morgan, when he was still running Mopars, gave us the opportunity to build headers for him, and we ended up building 7 sets. He was supplying engines. He was renting engines out, and all the guys who were running his engines were running our headers at one. But that was about 5 or 6 years ago. That was off the charts cool. to say that as a matter of fact, I think V Gaines actually won. V Gaines won Phoenix with our headers. So yeah, that's what it was. He definitely won one event with our headers. I believe it was Phoenix. So that was also, a nice little notch on our belt.
Now, from what I understand, what you guys are doing as far as late model stuff, it's not just domestic stuff. You actually have some foreign car stuff too.
Yeah, we, okay. So of course we built our business doing the stuff you'd expect, the Corvettes, the Camaros, the Mustangs, all the late model Challengers and Chargers. But once the word gets out there, you have a guy who's got a Corvette, but he has a C63 Mercedes or an E6, they have high powered V8s in them that could they're desperate for headers. So we started tapping into that stuff. We did BMW M3 stuff. I have to tell you, the one application that we got into recently, which is, I got to tell you, it's really cool. We go to a trade show every year in Dubai called Auto Mechanica, and we've been there about 4 times. And every time we went there, we were always constantly getting requests for headers for the Nissan Patrol. I don't know if you've heard of this thing.
Yep.
But it turns out there's a V8 version and an inline 6 version, and the V8 version is the Infiniti QX56. Well, that exists in the United States, but the inline 6 version, which is a 4.8 liter straight 6 double overhead cam engine, that truck is kind of like their Renegade, their Jeep. They go out into the sand and they go racing and they do all kinds of. They heavily modify these trucks with these 6-cylinder engines in them. And we found a guy out there. It took us years, but we found a guy out there who allowed us to bring it into the country. So we actually brought it in and we developed the whole header system for it. So that was like a really cool project. It was really cool doing burnouts with this truck with the Dubai plate on going up and down, Deer Park Avenue.
Who was the guy?
It was just kind of, what's that?
Who was the guy?
He was a doctor. He was some guy that we ran into at the trade show, a guy named Adam Coster. He basically, he just happened to be walking by, and as he saw our display, and as he was, he kind of like semi-stopped and said, "Hey man, you guys got headers for the patrol?" And I said, "Well, we're looking for a truck." He says, "Well, I have one." I says, "Well, I need one." He goes, "You want to take it?" I said, "I got to bring it to New York." And he goes, "All right, let's get it on the boat." And it was that, it's kind of how it happened. It took us 4 years, but that's how it happened with Adam, and he let us bring it into the country. It was a royal pain in the ass to get it on the boat, I have to tell you. I mean,
it's a shame you didn't know me then.
Well,
it was a royal pain in the ass. Obviously, it's coming from a Middle Eastern country into the United States. I don't have to tell you about that. We won't even go there.
Right.
So, and then and of course going back on the boat was almost as bad, maybe even worse, getting it back on the boat. And but it's done. It's done. The guy's got his truck back, and everything's 100%. So worked out because now we're getting orders for these things.
Who orders them from you? Just regular people, or
we have clients out there? No, shops, businesses out, in that region. Businesses in that region. Dubai is red hot for performance. It's the whole UAE is pretty much red hot. But Dubai is one of the more busier cities for that kind of stuff. Abu Dhabi is another one.
Have you been there?
Which you have. Oh yeah. Like I said, I've been there 4 times.
Oh yeah.
And, yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, we go there in May when it's 125 degrees in the shade. So it's not like we go there to enjoy ourselves. We just go there to get the trade show, meet, see some of our customers, shake some hands, and come.
Why don't you go to the custom show, the Emirates Custom Show, instead of Auto Mechanica? It's a way better show. It's in March.
You know what? That's a very good question. That's in March?
Yeah, I'm going. I've been there several times myself.
Is that the SEMA type show?
Yep.
Isn't that in Abu Dhabi?
Yeah.
It is. Okay, so no, you know what? I've been asked about that show. We just haven't done it. Auto Mechanica has been good to us. So it really has. I mean, I do see a lot of our clients there every year. I mean, they come back and they travel in from Saudi Arabia. They come in from Qatar or Qatar, whatever you want to call it.
Yep, Qatar.
And Bahrain. They come in from, and these are all hardcore. These are all hardcore car guys. you know, people that are really into the sport. So Auto Mechanic has been good to us.
You know,
But I wouldn't listen. I wouldn't rule out that show though.
well, at that show, at the custom show, they have an engine building contest every year, and I'm the judge.
Oh, you are.
Yeah, I got some huge customers over there. We'll talk about that tomorrow.
Right.
I got to call you about that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm there. Anyway, so that's basically it, man. You know, we built the company. You know, we kind of built the company under the premise that, you know, let's just do things differently. Let's make sure that when we put a product in the box, that when the customer pulls it out, he's going to look at it and say, you know what, this is quality, man. This is good stuff. This is exactly what I'm spending my money for. Of course, being in a certified made in USA company makes us more expensive. So, you know, and we have to justify that cost, you know, and the way to do it is to put a quality part in the box.
Yep. Well, just about, I would hope by this point in time, enough people in the United States have bought enough crap from overseas that they have to recognize that if somebody is making it in the USA and they're popular, that's got to mean a product really hands down has got everybody covered. I mean, that speaks volumes to me because it is much more expensive. You realistically probably could make more money outsourcing, but then, you know, quality control is going to go down.
Yeah, I listen. You won't see us in some of the major. I don't want to mention their name, but some of those major companies in their catalogs because I can't meet those margins. You know, my competitors are in there. I'm not. I am a brick and mortar mom and pop guy. I want to build my business, taking care of the people. You know, taking care of the people that run their business. Have families. You know what I mean? They have their employees, they have their insurance, they have their all the criteria, everything you need to run a business. These are the people I really genuinely care about. You know, when it all comes down to it, and I'd rather not deal with those big giant companies because I feel a lot of those companies they just don't do the right thing for a lot of mom and pop shops. So I think and a lot of those mom and pop shops. There's probably over 300 of them, brick and mortar type guys that we deal with, around the world. They appreciate that.
Yep.
They appreciate the fact that, that we want to cater to them, that at the end of the day, they are the most important thing to us, So it's kind of the philosophy of the company. That's really kind of been the philosophy of the company. And I welcome anybody who's listening to the show to Google American Racing Headers and kind of just check out what we've done. I mean, we've done quite a bit. So and here's another thing I like to throw out there. If you're building a car or if you went out and bought a brand new car and you want headers, and we love talking to our customers. This is one thing that we really enjoy doing because we're not a one size fits all company. I've been preaching that for a while. So because I make multiple applications, multiple options for each application, I should say. We like talking to our customers to find out what they're doing because we don't want them to buy the wrong product. Even if they don't buy it from us, if they're buying it directly through one of our vendors that might be doing the installation, the tuning, they can call us up and say, "Hey, Nick, or one of my sales guys, hey, guys, I'm going to be putting a supercharger on. I'm going to be throwing a camshaft on this thing. What's your recommendation?" Kind of like what you guys do. You know what I mean? You're not selling generic parts. You try and nail it for the guy. You want to put the right valve springs on the guy's motor.
Sure.
So with headers, there's companies that kind of just generalize. They'll make it, kind of like a one size fits all mentality. And we could do that too, but we don't. We don't, because at the end of the day, I want to be able to put the right size header on our customers' cars to optimize the performance that they're looking for based on what modifications they made.
Well, we will see. I just bought a set. I bought a set of LS swap headers for the '69 Camaro.
Oh, for your buddy's car, yeah.
So
it's I'm glad you mentioned that because our LS swap stuff is just off the charts. I mean, it's just unbelievable what's going on with this whole LS thing. I mean, they're dropping it into everything.
Everything.
And it was so funny. I mean, when that came out, it was bad enough when GM did their reverse cooling, one or two sets of cylinder heads will fit on the thing engine. I was like, they fucked everybody. Everything's ruined. It's all junk. Then here comes the LS. I'm like, you ruined everything that everybody's been working on and I was an anti-LS guy. I'm like, congratulations, GM, you dickheads. You just gave it to everybody. One of the rare times I was wrong. Very wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, they knocked it out of the park, guys.
Yes, they did.
They really did. And I mean, my son races a 2010 Camaro in a class called LSX Real Street. We partnered up with a company in Brooklyn called Farks Supercars.
Wow,
Very
Farks.
well known in Brooklyn. Farad, Farks.
Yeah.
Farad's the owner of Farks. Anyway, we partnered up with them, and George, Farad's son, and my son, basically they're co-drivers on this car. And this year we won the LSX Real Street deal with our 2010 Camaro. I mean, it was just a thrill to see that happen. I'm kind of living the dream through my kid.
Is that like a 7-second car at this point?
It went 765. Yeah, it went 765. It went just a shade under 180 miles an hour, and the car is still independent rear suspension. We've never put a solid axle in the car. So,
really?
And that's all Farad. Farad is just he's a mad scientist with that stuff. We test and test and test, and we just found a way to make the IRS work. It never broke. We never had a single incident with breakage with the IRS. And it's just, so we're going out there, we're doing things, we're having a good time, we're enjoying ourselves, and of course we're learning stuff as we go along. Mm-hmm. So one thing I will tell you I have a PhD in is knowing that I don't know everything. So that I can tell you is something that and so I'm constantly learning. I'm learning how to run a business, quite honestly. I'm 10 years into this. Granted, I was an owner, with Supreme for 15 years prior to this. But Supreme Automotive was a small little shop with 5 or 6 guys, and this has just been this is a whole world, worlds apart, different.
It's amazing what you learned today that you didn't know yesterday, isn't it? It's amazing.
It really is. It really, really is. And that's what really makes it exciting. We built this company as with the economic downturn. Everything was going to hell in a handbasket. With the economy, and of course, in 2008 with the disaster in 2008, we were up 20% in 2008. Mm-hmm. Our business was moving right along in 2008. We had better than double-digit growth that year, and we've been able to grow the company even though this economy's been crap, and in spite of all that, I often wonder, and I'm sure you guys do from time to time. I often wonder what it would have been like having this company, spending the last 10 years through a booming economy. I have no idea what that would have been like. I'm hoping that happens, sometime down the road. That's really what I'm praying for. Because at the end of the day, we want to grow our company. Right now there's a constant reinvestment. Everything we make, we're constantly putting back into the business to help us grow. Having some extra revenue, from a booming economy would be very, very helpful. I'm sure you can. Sure.
And from the business development side, manageable growth is nice, but there's kind of one of the kiss of deaths of a lot of businesses is things grow too quickly and they can't scale. So, that's a nice steady growth plot is something to be very happy about. I would be. That's for sure.
Right.
All right. So
the other thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, the other thing is, working in New York. We're based out of New York, which isn't easy. I can't tell you how expensive it is. Actually, I'm sure you totally understand how expensive it is trying to operate a business in New York. But we're doing it. We're making it happen. I guess it's time for me to go.
No. I was just going to ask you to clarify for everybody that's listening. If you had to nail down your core markets, what are they right now? Late model performance and LSX swapping?
No, I'm going to say that, so a good chunk of it, 65-70% of it is late model, performance cars and trucks. And over the last 5 years, I'm glad you brought this up. The last 5 years, we've invested a tremendous amount of time in the classics. So, Chevelle headers, Gen 1, Gen 2 Camaro. I made a header line for Oldsmobiles because I'm an Oldsmobile nut. I've been racing Oldsmobiles since I'm 18 years old. So I created a header line for Oldsmobiles. Little by little, we're just chipping away at the classics. We just did B and E body, big block and small block headers for Mopars, and we're getting ready to, we're tracking down, which actually maybe one of your listeners will want to donate an A body small block car because we need one, and a Hemi car, but I think a Hemi car I got lined up. And so we're tapping into the classic stuff because at the end of the day, how many times can you say no? People are calling up, looking for headers for these vehicles for years, and you can only say no so many times. So we finally decided to get these things in here. I mean, those cars aren't going anywhere. I don't have to tell you that. I mean,
Nope.
the Gen 1 Camaro, you can buy one right now, brand new, if you want it.
Yeah, we just talked about that.
Yeah.
You could basically put a brand new one together.
Yep.
That's kind of amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're expanding their line. I mean, they're doing Mustangs. I think they did a Mopar. I mean, they're expanding their line. So what's old is new again. With that stuff. So headers. And the guy who's building that car. Let's face it. The average guy who's building a Chevelle these days. Or a Camaro. They're going to spend 30, 40, 50, 60 grand. I mean, they're going to want a decent header. They're having a good high-end option out there is going to work out to our favor over time.
I hate to ask you this or even bring it up because the other guy in here has been suspiciously quiet, Ted. He is a Subaru guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Subaru.
yeah, I got to tell you, from not necessarily a fan of the Subaru. I know Tom has a Forester, strange, interesting vehicle.
Okay.
Tad has a WRX, but wow, what an amazing market it is. I mean, we had gone to a Subaru event in Englishtown. It was freezing cold, and I could not believe the turnout that was there. So I know.
Well, those are the only cars that would hook in the freezing cold weather.
Yeah, we've got a couple guys that are Subaru guys, and one guy actually asked, "Are you going to make anything for any of the imports?" And so it
Right.
actually stole Tad's question, but he's not saying nothing, so fuck him.
I was told not to ask it. So.
I got to tell you, I'm not afraid to tap into any market that hasn't already been saturated with garbage. Therein lies the issue with a lot of these vehicles like the Subaru, the W. As great as that car is, I'm going to produce a header that's not going to be inexpensive. It's going to be expensive, and when I say expensive relative to the $200 junk that you can get from eBay. So that's another thing we got to contend with our own stuff. Our own stuff is getting knocked off and being sold. You can go on eBay right now and find direct knockoffs of our product being sold there for a fraction of the cost. So now if I'm going out and developing a product for a vehicle there's 5 different companies or 10 different. You see them when you go to SEMA. I'm sure when you walk up and down the aisles at SEMA or PRI. You see some of these overseas companies, selling a lot of that stuff.
Do they have a Chinese row at SEMA and places like that? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, because we have that at CES. You go to CES and there's kind of like this one whole section, and you walk down there and you'd swear to God you stepped into Chinatown. There's like, I mean, dude, it's like Tad looked at me like I'm nuts, but I mean, these people are sitting there like eating Chinese food at booths talking amongst themselves. It's ridiculous. Right. It's
Oh no. I see it at SEMA. I've seen it at SEMA. I've seen it at SEMA and on numerous. I saw my Dodge Viper headers. If you want to hear a quick story, I had a girl come up to me. To try and sell me my headers, my design headers for the Dodge Viper. And she came up. She had a catalog in her hand. And her booth was only 2 aisles away, but I hadn't even noticed it. She comes over with a catalog, and she points to a picture of my Generation 3 Viper headers, and she tells me in English, she goes, I make for you. And I look at the picture. I go, honey, we make our own. She goes, no, I make for you. I said, honey, we make our own. I turned around and I pointed to them because they were sitting on the grid wall right behind me.
right.
She goes, no, I make for you cheaper.
Yeah.
And I go, honey, we make our own. We make our own. I don't need you to make anything for me. So now mind you, she was adorable. She was She was a good-looking Chinese girl, but I was so angry at that moment. I wanted to strangle her.
Yep.
Anyway, she walked off in the distance, and as she was walking off, I look across, and there it is on their grid wall. They had a grid wall up, and there it was, and it caught my eye. And I mean, what are you going to do? This is the industry we're in. Somebody who wants to take your stuff and just knock it off, they can do it. But more times than not, the stuff ends up on eBay, and then it just goes away after a while because it usually doesn't fit. It's usually junk that eventually fades away. So we all are, MSD, all these companies have seen that happen to them through the years. I mean, this is nothing new in our industry. We all have.
Yep.
So,
well, Tom just talked about blow-off valves and all kinds of stuff that are just copied like crazy.
Yeah, tile gets knocked off.
Absolute, and most of it is absolute garbage.
Yep.
It really is. I'm not going to say that everything these people touch is bad, but everything that in my industry, for the most part, is really inferior. It really is. You're not doing yourself. You're doing yourself a disservice. Yeah, you're saving a few dollars, but ultimately, if you have a nice car, you went out and spend $50,000 for this Charger SRT8, and you're going to go out and save $400, on a set of headers. I mean, come on.
Crazy.
Yeah, and yet people do it.
Yeah.
Yet people do it.
I remember that way back in the day when you put a small block Chevy in a Nova, you buy some cheap headers and equal length headers, and you look at them, it's like an 8-inch difference in tube lengths and stuff like that.
And the blackjack
That's
said,
the biggest fallacy ever. Even that goes on right now with, I see it with my competitors, where they'll claim equal length, and it just amazes me because it boggles my mind. One of my competitors, was touting equal length headers, right? For years and years. And I'm like, didn't anybody ever take a tape measure to these tubes? Okay. Because, it's so internet driven, our business, there was an 11-inch difference between his longest and shortest tube. 11 inches. Okay. And the header kind of looked nice, the routing of the tubes was kind of nice, but the longest to shortest tube, it was ridiculous. And I'm like, it always boggled my mind that they would make that claim and nobody called him out on it. It was people just automatically assumed that it was accurate, and it was far from accurate.
I think they just got it, and that
what's that?
You just got it, and you're like, I don't want to send it back. I got to put it in now. I got to get the car running, and you live and learn. But
you know what? Not that I would ever do that, but years ago you can get away with stuff like that.
Yeah.
Today, what I find is the moment you think you're going to cut a corner, it's going to bite you in the ass. There's no getting around it. Like I said, it's so internet driven. I've seen threads on websites where companies just get completely destroyed. And that's the stuff that keeps me up at night. That's the stuff that keeps me awake at night because I don't want to be in a position where I had an opportunity to fix a problem or had an opportunity to make sure something was right before I sold it to this customer, and then I didn't do it, and next thing you know, he's on the internet trashing my company. So this is the stuff that keeps me up, but I think that's also what's really making American Racing Headers a standout company. So I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to be in the position that I'm in, but it's a constant battle. It's a constant battle of doing the right thing and making sure that every single one of our customers is satisfied.
Well, it seems like you're winning it. Tell everybody, tell everybody how to get a hold of you. Give yourself a plug.
Shop. They can call the shop. It's 631-608-1986, or they can they can email me directly if they want. It's nick@americanracingheaders.com. I'd love a quick note and email if from any of the listeners if they heard the show and what they thought of the show, their impression, and of course if they have any questions about a project, I'd be glad to help them.
Awesome.
Okay, give the email one more time. Nick at American Racing.
My email, it's nick@americanracingheaders.com, and then of course the website is americanracingheaders.com.
All right. We got to have him back on.
Yeah,
because
because there's way too much information.
I've got so many more technical questions,
Yep.
like the dyno cell
Yep.
and like watching a guy with a 3-inch collector put a 3-inch piece of 12-foot long flex tube and then telling you the headers aren't, he's doing header testing. No, you're not. I mean,
Right.
there's,
Well, we'll have them on Monday on a regular day when we got a lot of listeners, and
yeah.
well, we'll do it again.
I'd love you tell me, guy. I try to be as flexible as I can. If I can come back and contribute some more to the show, I'd love to do that.
Well,
Awesome.
we appreciate it, man.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
All right.
No problem.
Really
Hey.
appreciate it, and happy New Year, to you boys.
Yeah, you too, Nick. Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
See ya.
You got it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All the best. Bye now.
Man, he's got a lot of information.
Yeah, I mean, we could spend hours on that.
I know. And I mean, the problem, I wanted him to tell his story because I was envisioning having him come back on so we can talk about some of the header things that,
Yeah.
because I mean, I don't mean to harp on this shit, but people don't understand unless they've actually followed it for any length of a time. Because when you look at NHRA super stock or stock, they're bracket racers, but they're not. I mean,
No, it's higher end, well tested. Yeah.
there are national records set in those classes, and those guys are very serious about
Yeah.
it. And I'm not picking on the guys that are running, like we always used to say, like Q stick, whatever.
Yeah.
There's classes that are highly competitive, and when you can work within those classes, and that's really saying something.
Well, even beyond that, even that Q stick guy has been running, for the most part, they've been running their shit for so long. If you give them a header or whatever that makes a change, they will be able to tell you, that it was quantifiable.
Sure.
So I understand how technologically advanced they kind of are, even though they don't seem like they are.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions for a header guy.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
An awful lot. So that could have really went on forever. But I mean, that's good because when you can leave something where there's still more to talk about, we can get them to come back on again.
Yeah. Maybe we can get some of our people to write in and ask us some questions to ask him.
Well, yeah.
Not that you don't have enough.
No, I know. But the problem is like this was kind of, we knew sort of last minute that we were going to do something, try to get something done this week so we could pick up back again on Monday. Again, my fault. I was sick.
We still had 10 people.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's, for live listening, just telling people, I mean, I'd like to have more, but I mean, it is what it is. But I know a lot of people download it. Tad?
Yes.
Good contribution.
I was going to ask him about your floating, hotspot, but
Yeah, but
for the next time.
next time, because now that, people can go back and listen and get a background on who the guy is.
Yeah.
Then we can go back over.
It was a good show, but it'll be better. More tech.
And BDoc, I believe, had sent a couple pictures of pro stock cars and making testing.
Yeah, we all,
yeah. I make testing.
Yeah, you make testing. Smoky tire.
That was very racially insensitive times. That he does have some information about, some people actually doing some pro stock testing. And he had sent me a text on it.
I saw the picture.
Yeah.
I mean the video of the burnout.
Yeah, well, no, now there's actually a pass. I think one car went 206. So, I mean, now, again, we can't confirm that it's, let's see where B-Doc's out here if he's listening. Damn, this was a long show, but good. You don't know if it was completely legal or if everything was on the up and up, or maybe it's a, mind game, who knows. But, I mean, that's honestly better than I thought they'd be.
Well, we'll see, because I'm going to be there.
Yeah, I'd like to go. When is it?
I think I go out February 10, 11, something like that.
Oh, so it's that close.
Yeah.
What was I thinking?
I don't know. What are you ever thinking?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I know. Well, let's wrap this shit up. What do you think, Tad?
Sure.
He said like 11 words tonight.
I know, and I kept looking over. I'm like, well, Tad, and he's just sitting there, like, I think he just enjoys listening.
And that's
how you get your information.
And that's okay.
He's a spectator by nature. That's what he is.
Yeah.
Way to go, Todd.
I brought up the firing order, so
I had,
Yeah, you did.
I brought up the Subaru thing. Jeff, the one Subaru guy in there, and there were other people talking about the Subaru thing.
Yep.
I mean, look, after seeing the amount of cars there, can't be a bad place to get into.
Yeah, we got to do another Subaru show.
Yeah.
We'll see you again next time, guys.
Yep, we'll be back on Monday night.